literally impossible for me not to.
You can't be cute when I'm not filming.
Cute at all times. So let's do this.
Hello and welcome back. Christine E. Schultz here, your favorite Elvish author, as well as the fabtabulous Isaac.
Hello!
And welcome back to another chapter reaction where we read the first chapters of books to help you, as well as us, discover new things that you might want to read. And today we'll be doing a book that Isaac picked up in the library on a recent library book haul called Beast Heart. It's from the Steampunk trilogy, so it's like this really kind of cool steampunk fantasy. And I was just having him look it up because I said to myself, this is a really cool cover, but it looks more like an indie book as opposed to like a mainstream published book. And lo and behold, Meerkat Press is an indie publisher. So good job. I'm an indie author, so we like to support that kind of thing here. So yeah, let's jump in. Strap on your elf ears, because that's the only way that you can listen to a book. The only way. Thank you. And get ready to listen to Beast Heart. As usual, let's go ahead and start with the blurb to give you guys an idea of what the book's about, and then we'll read a couple of chapters to get an idea for the writing and the story. The blurb says, when Gabby's hand turns to steam, her mom hires an engineer to build a clockwork glove. It's the last thing that Gabby wants. If only she could be normal. But when her mom is attacked by something monstrous, normal is no longer an option. Now, the only person she can turn to is a grizzled detective who promises to help her become something more. Meanwhile, Temple's foster dad treats him like a slave, and the beatings are getting worse. So, when a rebellious girl named Josephine arrives with a plan to escape the city, he doesn't hesitate. But there are creatures in Iron Bay whose slashes are worse than skin deep. And, as Temple evolves into something inhuman, his search for a cure begins. They are strangers in a city where carriages rattle, airships rumble, and their own dark pasts continue to haunt them. Soon their paths will collide, and the girl who slays monsters will come face to face with the boy who is becoming a beast. So already intriguing. We've read this before for our book haul video, but we really like that it has that steampunk feel. Appreciate anything with an airship. You can see an airship right here on the cover.
Airships are so cool.
And just that first sentence, when her hand turns to steam, like that just sounds like such a unique concept of what this character is dealing with. Plus, clockwork glove, again, steampunk. We're here for it. So,
all day.
Let's go ahead and jump in. And so this book is divided into part 1, part 2, and such, which I'm always a fan of. And part 1 is called A Girl and a Boy. Why, that's us. A girl and a boy. Okay, so chapter 1, before we start, I just want to make a comment. This is written in present tense, which is very unusual to see in a book. Also makes sense for it being an indie book because, you know, they kind of care less about you following mainstream rules in general. I have a book called Blood Maiden, which is also divided into part 1 and part 2. And in that one, part 1 is written in present tense, first person, because it's really meant to feel like you're right there in the moment. You're kind of just like thrown into this, you know, crazy, horrible situation in this brand new world. And so it makes you feel like you're right there. So let's see how we like it in this book. Can I take this stuff off? Gabby asks, looking up into Mom's sky blue eyes. Please? Mom shifts on her seat and shakes her head, making her long yellow hair twirl and bounce. We're next to see the doctor, she says, for probably the 10th time this morning. Gabby lets out an overloud sigh and slumps back into her chair. Somewhere between last night and this morning, the bandage around her hand turned dark and damp. Now it's so gray and sopping that she's afraid to even look at it. Plus, her fingers are really starting to ache under all that wet fabric. I'll just take it off for a minute, she says. Mom shakes her head. No, I told you, he'll see us soon. Gabby groans. Today, soon feels more like never. She flits her goggle-eyed gaze around the room, just to find something worth looking at. Aside from the ugly green chairs and the dumb brown carpet and the weird little lanterns hanging from the ceiling, the doctor's office is pretty much empty. He's probably just eating lunch in there, she says, pointing with her left hand, her good hand, at a closed door near the end of the hall. Mom frowns at the door, then glances down at the flowers printed on her skirt. I doubt it, she says, smoothing a wrinkle from one of the petals. He's more likely reviewing your file. She forces a smile, her lips pulling a little too thin. Then she musses Gabby's hair. Yours is a special case, after all. Special. What a lousy word. Nothing about Gabby's hand feels special. It feels painful, if anything. And weird, and a little bit tingly. I think something's wrong with me, she says, twisting her mouth. She kicks her legs along the side of the seat, back and forth. The dress she's in, a starchy, bright yellow thing with miniature trees dotting the hem, bunches up around her knees, and she frowns at how thin her legs look inside all that fabric, like she hasn't eaten anything in weeks. And I'm too skinny, she adds, kicking her legs harder. Mom inhales slowly, the way she always does whenever she wants a moment to think, as if her thoughts are balloons that need careful inflating. Nothing is wrong with you, she finally says. She reaches over and flattens the hem of Gabby's dress back down, covering up her knees. And you're certainly not too skinny, either. She peers sideways at Gabby as if seeing her for the first time, then spreads her mouth in a big, toothy grin. You're just right. But of course she would say that. She has to. It's like standard mom speak or something. Oh, sure, Gabby shoots back, rolling her eyes behind her gray lenses. I'm just perfect. Mom raises a finger, almost threateningly, as if she plans to jab it sword-like right through Gabby's chest. But before she gets the chance, a balding man in a white smock steps into the room and clears his throat. Gabrielle Lenton? The man mumbles, dabbing a beige kerchief against his mouth. Gabby gives Mom a victorious elbow jab to the ribs. See, she whispers, he was eating. Mom ignores the comment, wraps her slender fingers around Gabby's arm, and tugs her to her feet. Thank you, doctor, she says, flashing an apologetic smile. I know this is short notice and all, but... The man stuffs the kerchief into one of his pockets, then waves a hand like he's swatting away a bug. No explanation necessary, Miss Lenton, he says, glancing at Gabby. He smiles in a way that makes his chubby face look even chubbier. Then he bends down, rests his palms on his knees, and speaks slowly and loudly, as if he thinks Gabby is deaf and dumb. Hello again, Gabrielle, he calls out. You're looking quite lovely today. Do you remember me? Gabby scrunches her face. How could she forget their new family doctor? They only have the one. I do, she says flatly. Then, because Mom gives her arm a sharp squeeze, she adds, and thanks for seeing me. The doctor smiles, pats her head, and nods at Mom. Oh, to be 9 years old again, eh? He says this in a voice that sounds half joking, half sad, and Mom gives him one of those pretty smiles she uses whenever she's at work. Her eyes bunched, her teeth bare and gleaming. Of all Mom's smiles, this one is her fakest. Well then, the man says, clearly fooled by the smile, let's have a look at that hand, shall we? Gabby's bandaged hand throbs, as if it knows it's being talked about, and she gulps as Mom nudges her along. They follow the doctor quietly, their shoes scuffing against the mud-colored carpet, Gabby holding her breath all the while. For some reason, it feels like they're going to a funeral. Chapter 2. When they enter the examination room, Gabby doesn't wait for the doctor to tell her what to do. She just climbs right up into that crinkly mattress and slumps down into her back. She knows the routine by now. Well, the doctor says with a chuckle, somebody has done this enough times before. Mom says something back, but Gabby doesn't hear it. She's too busy looking out the room's only window at the park across the street. From here, she can just make out the edge of a wooden swing. 2 boys around her age are taking turns riding it. She stares at them, unblinking, through the dark lenses of her goggles, until the doctor clears his throat. I'm going to remove your bandages now, Gabrielle, he says, gently lifting her arm, so I can get a better look at your hand. Is that okay with you? Gabby looks up at the doctor's smiling face, nods, and then looks back at the park. The boys have wandered off somewhere, leaving the swing empty. She imagines herself in their place, sitting on the splintered wood, her dress rippling in the wind, her goggles shining in the sun. In her daydreams, she always has 2 normal hands, no wet bandages, no aches and pains, no reason to be examined by bald doctors. Aside from her lenses, which are, for some reason, always there, even in her fantasies, her daydream self never has anything wrong with her at all. The doctor says, unwrapping the damp gauze. It's definitely... He trails off, and Mom fills the silence by saying, Yes, I know, and now it looks like tinted glass? That's one way to describe it, the doctor replies. He prods at Gabby's hand with his fingertips, pushing gently against her wrist until tiny jolts of pain streak through her knuckles. When she winces and tugs against his hold, he relaxes his grip. Sorry, my dear, he says, lowering her arm. It's the kind of sorry she's gotten used to from hearing from the doctors before him. Sorry, I don't know what to make of it, or sorry, I don't know what to do. Or her least favorite of all. Sorry, I don't think it can be fixed. She frowns and looks away from the window, settling her gaze on the eggshell-colored ceiling instead. So that's it then, she says? I'm doomed? Mom sighs, and the doctor lets out a slow laugh. Well, I wouldn't go that far, he says, though I would like to try something, if it's okay with your mother. Gabby bunches her face. All the other doctors ended their examinations as soon as they apologized. None of them ever wanted to try something. She looks at Mom, who smiles softly and gives her a quick nod. It's okay, sweetie, she says. I'm here. So Gabby exhales and peers back out the window as the doctor moves about the room, clattering objects and rummaging through drawers. At one point, it sounds like he's peeling open a roll of tape. Then it sounds like he's twisting open a peanut butter jar. Gabby forces herself not to look at any of it, not because she's afraid, but because doctor stuff always confuses her. And today she wants to stay clear and level. Her mind is flat as a windless lake. Today, the doctor will tell her that everything is finally okay. Today, they will find a cure. Today... What I have here is a syringe, the doctor says, raising a large metallic needle to the light. He holds it above Gabby like a trophy, like something he wants her to gape at and marvel over. She scowls at it instead. No, she says. No, thank you. I don't like needles. She widens her eyes behind her lenses and looks quickly at Mom, who squeezes her hand in response. I haven't given you permission to inject my daughter with anything, Doctor, Mom says, looking hard into the man's brown eyes. The doctor nods, as if he expected this response. I completely understand your concern, though I assure you, I won't be injecting anything to your daughter. My plan is to merely puncture the skin of her wrists. He looks down at Gabby and smiles again, as if he didn't just use the word puncture, as if he didn't just say that he wants to stab her with a needle. The poke, he tells her, will be very slight, like a bug bite, nothing more. Then it will be done, and I'll put the needle away, and you won't have to see it or be poked by it again. I give you my word. Gabby chews on her lip. Doctors have been giving her their word for months now, and frankly, it hasn't done her any good. She looks back at Mom, whose face has become tight and wrinkled with concern. And what, Mom asks the man, are you hoping to accomplish with this? A release of hydrostatic pressure, the doctor says quickly. When his words only seem to confuse Mom more, he adds in simpler terms, to ease her discomfort. Mom frowns, then slowly nods. And the jar, she asks. The doctor shifts something under his arm that gives Gabby a playful wink. Called a hunch. Mom says nothing back, and Gabby clenches her teeth. What do hunches have to do with needles and jars? And what does any of this have to do with her sore hand? After this, she says, can I go? The doctor clears his throat. Well, there'll still be some routine tests that I'd like to run, and... Gabby shakes her head and says more firmly, I'd like to go after this. I don't feel like doing any more tests. The doctor exhales and says, I understand, Gabrielle, but... Mom finally speaks up. I agree with my daughter on this. I'll grant you permission to prod her with that needle, but after that, I'm taking her home. Surely you can run any additional tests on her some other day. The doctor sighs, and Gabby holds back a grin. She knows that sigh. It's the same one she uses whenever Mom gets into one of her difficult moods, when the only thing you can do is sigh back. Very well, says the doctor, but I do insist that you bring Gabrielle back at your earliest convenience. If this procedure goes as I expect it will, there will be many questions left unanswered. Time will be of the essence. I'm taking her home after that needle, Mom replies, her tone suddenly heavy and forceful, and the doctor says nothing back. He merely nods, lifts Gabby's arm, and slowly brings the syringe toward her wrist. You'll feel a slight poke, he says. It'll hurt for an instant, and then the pain will be gone. Are you ready? Gabby isn't ready, no. She doesn't want to be ready, but Mom's hand tightens around her so firmly that it feels like she has no choice. After all, Mom did agree to take her home, to make all this go away if Gabby would just let the doctor poke her wrist. Just once. One jab from that needle, and it'll all be over. One quick prick of pain, and things will be better. The doctor will hum, and Mom will sigh with relief, and Gabby will wince her eyelids apart to see that her hand has suddenly been cured. Just like that. Surely an outcome that perfect is worth a split second of pain? I'm ready, she says, looking out the window once again. She finds the edge of that wooden swing and pins her eyes to it, locking her lens-covered stare in place. The doctor clears his throat, lifts her wrist higher, and then begins to count backward. 3, he says. Gabby swallows hard. 2, he says. Mom sniffs loudly. 1. Mom's hand squeezes her so hard it hurts, and Gabby pinches her eyes shut, smothering the world in darkness, tensing every muscle until her body feels hard as stone, ready for any impact. The needle presses against her wrist, and then the touch becomes painful, hot and searing, as if the metal tip has somehow caught fire. She whimpers, and just when she's about to cry out, the pain suddenly vanishes. Mom lets out a gasp. The doctor becomes a flurry of movement, shifting and grabbing, grunting and rapping. The sound of unfurling tape returns. Something thuds dully against her forearm, and then a different something presses against her elbow. Finally, there's a sound like water spraying. Mom's voice rises above it all, her words spinning off-key. What is that? What's happening? When it's all over, the doctor drags his sleeve across his forehead and gives Gabby a pat on the arm. You're a brave girl, he says. Then to Mom, he raises his eyebrows. This is quite likely the first case of its kind. Mom's face looks pale, like she's seen a ghost. Is that supposed to be comforting? The doctor shrugs and gestures at Gabby. Gabrielle, does your hand hurt anymore? Gabby relaxes her body and slowly wiggles her bad fingers. She waits for the dull throbs of pain that always come next, but nothing happens. There are no aches, nothing tingles. There isn't anything, really. It feels good now, she says, letting the sound of her own strange words wash over her. Good now. How long has she waited to say such a thing? But, Mom begins. She leaves the sentence dangling, unfinished, as if there's nothing else to be said, and the doctor rests a hand on her shoulder. If you'd like me to proceed with some additional tests, he says. Mom shakes her head and shrugs off the man's touch. No, I said I would take her home, and that's what I'm going to do. The doctor nods quickly. Understood, though I must insist, Miss Lenton, that you return as soon as possible. I have a few colleagues who would greatly appreciate seeing your daughter. They may provide some answers that I'm not yet able to. Mom blinks dumbly at the doctor and then says, Do you have something to cover it up? Gabby scrunches her face all over again. Cover what up? Her hand? Isn't it fixed now? Why would she need to cover it? She lifts her head and tries to see her fixed fingers, but Mom gently pushes her shoulders back down onto the mattress. Just a moment, sweetie, she says. The doctor pulls a thick green towel from somewhere beneath the mattress and hands it to Mom, who begins tying it around Gabby's forearm, knotting the fabric tightly, as if she's wrapping some horrible gift. That should discourage any curious eyes, the doctor says. Again, Gabby frowns. Why would anyone be curious about her hand now? It feels fine. Why, she can even wiggle her fingers and... It's okay, I can take the towel off, she says, reaching for the green fabric. Mom shakes her head and grabs at Gabby's forearm, but Gabby is already pulling the knot loose, tugging the towel apart. Honey, wait, Mom shouts. You don't understand. Really, it's okay, Gabby says, yanking at the fabric. I don't need a towel or bandages or... Mom grasps frantically at the towel, but Gabby twists it out of her reach and tugs the last bit of fabric free. See, she says proudly, lifting her hand up to the light. It's... But then she sees what Mom has been trying to hide, and all the warmth inside her suddenly darkens and crumples, as if a rock has formed behind her ribs, made of nothing but ash and burnt leaves. Her hand isn't fixed, not even close. It's sealed in a glass jar now, one that's been taped around her wrist, and inside of the glass looks foggy and clouded, as if the doctor has filled it with smoke. No, as if her hand is made of smoke. What? She stammers. Mom wraps the towel back around the jar and quickly ties it into place, but Gabby has already seen enough. Is that my hand? The doctor rubs the back of his neck, and this time when he smiles, he looks proud, excited even. Gabrielle, he says, bending close to her. He glances at Mom, whose face looks stiff and unreadable. I believe, the doctor says, looking eagerly into Gabby's eyes, that yours is the first ever instance of a body part turning entirely into steam. Mom closes her eyes and lets out a choked sob, and Gabby knows she should be upset. She knows that this is a bad thing. It couldn't possibly be good anyway. She knows the cold, hard feeling behind her ribs is here to stay, and that she might as well get used to it. But all she does is lie down on the mattress and look back out the window until her spectacled eyes find that wooden swing all over again. This time, when she imagines herself perched on the seat, one of her hands is sealed in a glass jar, with her fingers pluming inside it like mist. And that is the end of the first couple of chapters to Beast Heart from the Steambound trilogy. Thoughts or comments?
We haven't gotten... we didn't read too deep into it.
Yeah.
I don't feel.
Okay.
But turning it out, that's pretty cool. I want my hand to turn to steam.
Do you really? You just like walk around with like a mason jar in your hand all day?
Oh, I want the cool glove.
We haven't gotten to the cool glove yet, but we were promised a cool glove. Yes, we aren't too deep into past what, the blurb has said so far. But again, I will say with the writing, they do kind of just drop us right into it. And we kind of got to figure out what's going on as we go along. I'm curious if she wears goggles because that's just kind of the style, or if that's just like how people wear glasses in this world with it being more steampunk style. But yeah, I'm curious what kind of ailment she had. It seems like her hand was maybe, if not made of liquid, using some kind of liquid because it was very wet when she got there, and now he's just popped it and turned it into steam.
Like a balloon.
Like a balloon, yeah. So, even though we haven't gotten far, interested. I think the writing is well done so far. So let us know down in the comments what you thought of this reading, what you think of this book so far. If you have happened to read it, let us know how you enjoy it. Please give a warning for any spoilers. And on that note, happy reading. May you be inspired, and we'll see you in our next video.